Imagine this. You're 45. You're going up the stairs. You're already tired from doing something so simple. On top of that, you just gone to the doctors and got your blood work done. The results? Not as good as you might think. High cholesterol, high blood pressure, maybe high triglycerides. That's not the greatest news. So if you're a dad and you've realized that you need to transform your health now before it gets too late, let me help you in 3 simple steps. Did you know that after the age of 40, men lose almost 10% of their muscle mass every decade? And a low muscle mass is directly related to early death. So before even going into strategy, this is something that's really important to understand. All right. This emotional wake up call. So you've been to the doctor and you get the blood work done, or the doctor says that you have something bad happening with your health, right? You have that sudden realization that, oh, I actually need to take care of this. I need to start taking this more seriously, right? And what happens is that most dads don't change until it's too late, right? They take out or are not mindful of all these warning signs. So if you're a dad and maybe you haven't even gone to this point where your health isn't that bad, but you have that belly, right? You notice that you're not energized for your kids. You're always coming home tired. And that gut that you have makes you look pregnant. Those are all things that you need to take care of right now. All right. Part of my own story, or why I created this coaching program and why I love helping dads, is with the experience that I had with my own father. My dad, at the young age of 51, ended up having a stroke, and that led to a ton of financial, physical, emotional stress throughout our whole family. Now, thankfully, my dad has been able to fully recover, but that doesn't take away from all the stress that has happened throughout the years. In addition to that, too, I'm sure any father, you never want to put your kids or wife through a situation where they might fear the loss of you, or the fear of leaving your family behind because you didn't take care of yourself, right? Those are things that are very, very important. So that emotional wake up that you have, really sit into it, because and don't push it aside, because I've also seen the opposite, where a lot of guys say, it's not that big of a deal, etc., etc., and now you're on medication and you're on Ozempic for the rest of your life, or you're using high blood pressure medication for the rest of your life, etc. Those are all big deal things. If you want to be healthy for your family, if you want to be the superhero energized dad, you shouldn't be on any medication at all. And if you're not willing to change that, that really says a lot about where your head's at or where your priorities are. Because it's super important to be healthy physically, mentally, spiritually for your family, so you can lead by example all the time. You can pass on those values of hard work, discipline, etc. And again, like I've shared before, discipline and hard work really starts with your physical body. So, um, before I get into everything else, I want to go through a couple concepts here that are really important that come with this emotional wake up. Number one is that dads tends to beat themselves up, right? And usually the way that shows up is that you feel bad about certain things, but you brush it aside, right? It's easier to brush aside those feelings and actually change, because maybe you've struggled with your weight in the past, or maybe you tried to lose weight, but you ended up gaining it back, right? And it can be frustrating being in that cycle over and over again. So the biggest thing is, all right, you can't change the past. And what we can actually change is the future. So focusing on building habits, focusing on creating something that's permanent, creating a lifestyle that you're able to enjoy for the rest of your life, so that, when your kids have kids themselves, your grandchildren, you're able to keep up with them, right? You're not taking blood pressure medication for the rest of your life because all of a sudden you need it. Or I've seen, here's another example. I've seen one guy order cake and tell the person that, oh, you know what, can you take off the icing because I'm watching my sugar? That doesn't make sense, right? If you're trying to get healthy, do it the right way, fully commit to it. So when it comes to beating yourself up, that goes into the second one here, where a lot of dads go from 0 to 100, right? Now you need to make this change. And all of a sudden, okay, you need to work out, you need to eat clean, you need to make XYZ. And they go to the gym hard 6 days a week. And then all of a sudden also decide to change your diet all at once and go super extreme, right? Well, usually extreme measures last for a certain amount of time. How sustainable is it that, on top of kids, family, work, you can keep up working out 6 days a week? That's not very sustainable, right? So we want to make sure that we're building up habits at the very beginning, and you're starting off yourself for success. So instead of going from 0 to 100, can we go from 0 to 10 first? All right. Can we make sure that we're working out 2 to 3 times a week? Can we make sure that you're getting a minimum of 10K steps a day? Can we make sure that you are making small changes with your nutrition that'll last a lifetime? Right. So then can we increase it from there? All right. Now that you've gotten some consistency with your workouts, can we make them a little bit harder? Right. So that takes you from 10 to 20, 30, 40, all the way up to 100, instead of always trying to go from 0 to 100 and failing all the time. It's one of the worst things. Now, the third point is that, especially when you get blood work from doctors, doctors will also tell you, oh, being mindful of like your heart rate, etc. Dads will only diet and not work out. This is significantly one of the biggest problems that you can have, because if you don't work out and you start losing weight, you are going to lose something that is super, super precious, something that allows you to live a long life. And that one thing is muscle. Muscle is super, super important. So it's key if you want to make sure that not only are you changing your blood measurements and changing these health markers permanently, and you still want to be able to enjoy your favorite foods, you still want to be able to be active, you still want to live a long life, then you need to diet and exercise. All right. I've seen it with my own dad in the past where he's gone on these crazy diets where, um, whether it's cutting out carbs or doing other things, right? And that takes a toll. And instead of going from fat to changing your body and being fit and slim, you're going from fat to skinny fat. And that is never fun. In fact, it's actually worse because now that you're skinny fat, you have a lower amount of muscle and you're more susceptible to all these other health problems. So that's really the emotional wake up call. And that's what you need to work on. So that takes me into another key concept and talks about the cycle that fails, right? This yo-yo that you've been on, especially if you've lost weight in the past. Maybe you've lost it for a couple months and then all of a sudden it comes back after a couple months again. Or maybe you've lost it in the past, right? But then after a few years, all of a sudden you've come back. And here's a hard truth with that is that if you've lost weight and gained it back, you don't know how to lose weight. All right. Unfortunately, I've heard this from so many dads. Oh, I know how to lose weight. Oh, I know how to get healthy. Right. But did the weight come back on? Yeah, but I stopped doing keto. I stopped eating healthy. I wasn't as mindful. Well, that just shows that whatever you did wasn't a permanent solution. If it was a permanent solution, then it would have stayed off. That's why doing things like keto, carnivore, intermittent fasting, Weight Watchers, all these workout classes, none of them are actually permanent solutions. And unfortunately, when you look at the diet industry, it's $1 billion industry. Now, what that means is having an industry that big is that their goal is for you to fail. Their goal is for you to come back over and over and over again because if it actually worked, then you wouldn't need all these things. You wouldn't need Ozempic. You wouldn't need different all these quick fixes like fasting, right? So if you want to be able to make sure, do it a different way. All right. You cannot change the fundamentals of exercising in the gym. You cannot change the fundamentals of eating cleanly and actually having a plan, right? You need to make sure that your plan has everything. Right? I always like to use this analogy of, all right, if you went to work, right, and your boss told you to complete a project, right, you would have a full plan taking you from point A to point B. You would have the different tasks that you need to get completed. You would have an understanding of the people that you would need. You would have an understanding of the milestones that you would need in order to complete that project, right? But when you think about a plan for your nutrition, most guys just say, "Oh, I just need to get healthier. Oh, I'm just going to eat less." That's not a plan. That's like saying, "Oh, you know what? I'm just going to work harder to complete this project." Or, "Oh, you know what? I'm just going to write stuff down to complete this project." That's not an actual plan. So again, firstly, it's not to your fault at all, but this is what the culture has created when it comes to health and fitness, right? You need an actual plan that takes you from point A to point B. So that's what the permanent fixes are, right? If you really want to fix your blood work, you need to lose weight, specifically lose fat, and build muscle. right? If you want a permanent for fat loss, making sure that you're building the right habits with your exercise, you're building your habits with your lifestyle, getting more steps in, being active and not sedentary. Because these things is what's super important to make you that energized superhero dad that you want to be. These are key to leading by example. This is key to having that daily discipline in all aspects of life, right? Not only in your marriage and in your work, but also in your health, because your health, your body is the single and sole thing that will positively impact every aspect of your life. So that's why if you want to stop that cycle, if you want to actually make this a permanent thing, is focus on what really matters. All right. And that takes me to this real strategy. Okay. The real strategy when it comes to being able to get back in shape, right? You have this scare, you're 45, your doctor tells you that you need to make a change, right? You want to live a long life for your kids. You're already creating these scenarios of, oh my gosh, what if I died early? What if this and that happens? What if I had heart disease, right? And maybe that's something you've been brushing aside for a long time, but this is how you actually do it. Okay. So you want to attack all of these at once. And I want to preface is that what you're looking for isn't perfection. What you're looking for is progress. All right. So, firstly, we want to get a minimum of 3 workouts a day, or sorry, 3 workouts a week that are full body. All right. If you want a full guide in terms of what those workouts would look like for absolutely free, just comment workouts below. I can shoot those over what that would look like. Okay. Again, 3 full body workouts a week. Ideally, do this in the gym. All right. You have time for that. All right. Majority of people spend a minimum of 3 to 4 hours on their phone every single day. All right. Guys probably spend 30 minutes on the toilet, right? That's 30 minutes. You could be in the gym instead, right? So again, it doesn't have to be long, quick, 30 to 40 minute full body workouts, all you need. All right. So the second part is getting 10,000 steps a day. All right. That's super important because it's about creating this lifestyle, this active lifestyle that allows you to be non sedentary, right? It's about making your metabolism faster. It's about allowing yourself to burn more calories throughout the day. And although that's a byproduct, that helps you eat more food, right? And can't complain with that, especially if you enjoy food, right? And lastly, that's really important for your overall health. Now, uh, the very last part here is talking about a meal plan. So, especially if you want to lose weight as effectively as possible, you need to have a full plan that, again, takes you from point A to point B. All right. A super simple option that you have is go over to Precision Nutrition. All right. There's a calculator that they have, and you can get started. It sends out to your email and it uses an easy hand portioning system. All right. Something that I do with my clients is I literally map out every single food that they're going to eat throughout the day because if you're a busy dad, you don't have time to think. Right. And so whether it's that, calorie counting, etc., make sure that you have an actual plan. And if it's not working, adjust, adapt, right? Most times is guys end up overeating on the weekends. If you're counting calories, you're probably not accounting for a lot of things. And if you're not losing a minimum of 1 to 2 pounds every single week, then again, adapt, adapt, adapt. All right. One thing that I've shared in past videos is that use the same principles that you have in your marriage and your work into your health, right? If the wife gets mad at you for something that you did, next time you don't do it again, right? But what tends to happen is with your health and fitness is that guys say, "Oh, I got off track," right? And then they go back to the original plan and then they got off track again. But they don't actually change anything, right? That doesn't make sense. If you applied that same thing to your marriage with your kids, your work, you'd be divorced. Your kids wouldn't like you and you probably wouldn't have a job. So that's why it's so important to make sure you have a plan, adapt, and treat it like your work. All right. Now, the very last thing is accountability. This is the number one thing that is missing with so many guys. And going along those principles that I talked about, you have accountability at work, you have accountability in your marriage, right? So you need accountability in your health. That's why I'm a big believer in coaching. I invest over $1,000 every single month in coaching because I know myself that I'm a human being. I fail, I make mistakes, and it's so important to make sure that you are continuously improving every single day. And even when I don't feel like it, I show up because I have somebody that is holding me accountable. All right. So that whether it's a coach, whether it's a group of guys, make sure that you have accountability, invest into it. That's another aspect, right? Investing into yourself shows accountability. And this is a big kicker that I don't understand is as a dad, you'll invest into a $10,000 vacation for the family. But when it comes to your health, spending $1,000, something that will actually allow you to live longer, something that's going to actually spend more time on this earth, guys say, oh, that's not worth it, or I can't afford that. It's not in my budget. It doesn't make sense. You'll go buy a new car. You'll go buy, take on a $500 monthly payment. But if you were to spend $500 a month on yourself and your health, oh, that's not in my budget, right? Again, doesn't make sense. What are your priorities here? And that's why, again, if you really want to make sure that you are at your absolute best, if you're serious about being that superhero energized father for your kids, leading by example, go get some accountability. All right. That will drastically increase your level of success. All right. So that is everything from this video. So if you're a dad and you've been struggling, you found out that you want to be able to make this change, get healthier, you saw your blood work change, and you're serious about it, then follow this full strategy. All right. That's going to allow you to transform your life and be that legendary superhero father that you want to be. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure to smash the like button, hit a minimum of 30 likes on this. All right. And that's my big goal. And with that, hope you enjoyed. Peace and go be legendary.